As we bring you back out here now at 9:39, we'll take you back out to the Karen Reed retrial. This is a witness on the stand. They are showing some graphic images, just to let you know, of the victim's arm where that forensic expert was including her input on dog bites, on alleged dog bites. So we'll take you back out to this testimony live out of Dedham, Massachusetts, here on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
No, there is a small possibility that they could be caused by nails.
When you first testified, you didn't qualify it as a small possibility, did you?
I perhaps wasn't asked.
Well, you answered. Remember when you were asked about it and you answered? You talked about that it was a pattern close to the shoulder with parallel marks. Do you remember?
Do I remember what?
Saying that this is a pattern close to the shoulder, right? That they're superficial. You agree with that still?
Yes.
And did you say they were consistent with teeth and nail marks?
Yes.
Okay. Nails on a dog oftentimes, or most times, are horseshoe-shaped, aren't they?
They're generally conical shape.
You don't think that nails on a dog in your studies have a horseshoe shape?
I think it depends on the grooming of the dog and if the nails were cut recently. But in general, they come to a point. They're at the, at the end of the paw. They come to a point, and by the way, the paws can open and close, so the distance between the nails can vary depending on how that claw impacts the skin. So in many ways, they resemble the overall shape of canine teeth.
And so to get back to my question here, you're saying that this could have been caused by dog nails?
It's possible.
Do you know, or do you think that the teeth in a dog are different shapes and sizes?
Oh, yes. Depending on the tooth, there's different shapes and sizes. Absolutely.
When you testified the first time and you said that you thought it was teeth or nails, do you remember testifying a couple days later in front of a group of people and you again iterated that this could be teeth or claw marks? That was your testimony last year. Teeth or claw marks, right?
No, I'm going to object to the characterization of that prior proceeding.
So just prior proceeding, folks, that's all that we need.
Did you testify at that prior proceeding last summer that this could have been teeth or claw marks?
I would need to see the transcript.
May I approach?
Yes.
Sure. When you first testified on June 18th, Doctor, you were asked questions trying to identify what you thought that wound was. And this is your June 18, 2024 testimony. On page 37, line 7, the questions begin, and you were asked what you thought they were. You can read any part you want, but line 7 might be a starting point.
Yes, I said that which are consistent with teeth marks. They also could be possibly consistent with nail marks.
Dr. Russell, I'm just going to ask you to keep your voice up, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. That was your first testimony last year, yes?
Yes.
And then did you testify a couple days later and again repeated the same opinion, teeth or nail marks?
May I see it?
I'm asking if you remember.
Yes, I remember testifying.
Do you remember after you worked on your report and submitted your report,
Yes,
after your consultations, do you remember changing that opinion regarding number one? Do you remember changing that opinion?
no,
Do you remember changing from either teeth or possibly claw marks to being very specific, claiming that it was definitely teeth marks?
no.
Are there different types of teeth in a dog?
Yes,
Okay. The pointy teeth, the big ones, those are called canines,
correct,
and the smaller ones are incisors.
correct,
There are 6 incisors in a healthy dog on the top and bottom between the canines.
correct.
Okay. Did you, when you testified subsequently to the original proceedings, did you change your opinion from teeth or claw marks to specifically teeth and even more specifically canines?
Do you have a transcript?
I do, but I'm going to ask you the question. Do you remember changing your testimony from teeth or nails to being very certain that it was canines, not just teeth, canines that caused that wound?
I became more certain, yes.
You had never said that the canines caused these wounds before you filed the report, ever, did you?
I may not have, that's true.
And so after you did your report, you shifted from teeth and nails to canines. Do you remember that?
I don't think it's a shift.
No one would ever refer to a dog's nails as canines, would they?
No, I don't think so.
That would be inaccurate, wouldn't it?
Yes,
That would be a mistaken use of the word.
I believe so.
When you testified December 2024, you didn't say nails could have caused this wound. You didn't say generally teeth. You said canines.
I believe that, and that's true. I believe that canine teeth caused that wound.
Did you have any new information about photographs that would help you change your opinion from teeth and nails to canines?
Well, I had been challenged. I had testified several times. I reviewed the case several times and challenged, and each time I reviewed the case, I became more certain that these were from canine teeth.
So-
and actually, there's other marks there, but these are from teeth.
You say more certain. You had never said canines before, ever, until that recent hearing. Isn't that true?
I said teeth.
Canines.
It doesn't matter. I said teeth.
Top-
Canines are some of the teeth.
Upper or lower canines?
Upper.
And if it's upper canines, you testified previously that the point of entry would be here at the bottom and the dog would pull this way. That's what you testified to. Yes?
No, I believe you misunderstood then. The point of entry is up there. The first initial point of contact is there. And the dog pulled this way, or Mr. O'Keefe pulled his arm the opposite way.
Dr. Russell, you don't recall that you said that the bigger circles are the point of entry, the dog pulled this way, and then I asked you, how could a dog pull this way when the arc is like this? The dog's mouth would have to be in backwards. Remember that conversation we had?
Objection, Your Honor.
Going to allow.
Do you remember that conversation? You said that the point of entry would be the bigger circle, pulled this way, and then I questioned, how could a dog's arc look like this if the teeth went that way?
No, I don't recall that
Do you
at
remember
all.
that conversation
No.
we had? Okay. And so, inevitably, when you look at this part of the wound alone, have you expressed an opinion that you're unable on its own to be able to tell whether this was caused by a dog.
Which part of the wound?
Taking any of these alone, let's start with number one. Haven't you expressed an opinion that taking this alone, you would not be able to say that was from a dog bite?
That is correct. In and of themselves, they're not that specific or characteristic. However, as a group, they are highly characteristic of a dog
So if
injury.
Mr. O'Keefe's arm only had this wound and nothing else, by virtue of what you're telling us, you would not be able to offer an opinion that this was consistent with a dog bite.
The very first wound up
Yes.
there, closest, I agree, yes.
In fact, you've testified about this very issue before. If this was the only wound on Mr. O'Keefe, number two, you would not be able to say that the injury is consistent with a dog bite.
Correct.
I'm going to go through all of these just so we're clear. Same thing with number three. You've provided opinions on this before. If you look at this wound alone, in isolation, you would not be able to say that it came from a dog bite.
Correct.
Four, pardon me, yep, four, same. Looking at the wound alone, you would not be able to say it came from a dog bite.
Correct.
Same for five and same for six.
Correct.
Now, when you testified before your recent testimony, you never had that qualification. When you came into court, you were saying that when you looked at these wounds individually, you were saying that you could identify it as a dog bite.
I disagree with that characterization.
Number two, what caused this wound, Dr. Russell?
Number two, I believe that was dog bite or scratch, but mostly I believe dog bite. And because there's a punctate, little tiny, pinpoint almost, lesion there and there, which could represent bottom teeth.
Okay, so you're using words like could, and we're talking about a reasonable degree of medical certainty. So when you look at this wound here, you said that you are sure or not sure what caused this wound.
I'm saying that individually, that wound, that's correct. I'm not sure individually what that wound was caused by. However, again, as I mentioned earlier, the overall pattern of wounds is what I am convinced of.
I want to go through each of these wounds separately so we understand what you actually recognize with your methodology and what you don't. So looking at wound number two, based on whatever methodology you've been using, are there any signs, indicators, objective criteria you can look at and tell us this is or is not a dog bite based on this methodology you have?
There are some characteristics that are suggestive of a dog bite or dog claw, including the fact that there are parallel lesions, and many of these, overall, by the way, parallel lesions are in the same general direction. So there are parallel lesions, and here they're associated with some punctate or point-like other abrasions right here. So they're consistent with being inflicted by a dog.
I appreciate you using some medical terms to describe this, but my question is more pointed. Is there anything about your methodology, something that stands out about these wounds, that you can say to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that these are consistent with a dog either biting or scratching?
These wounds all by themselves, not to a medical degree of certainty, no.
You said on this first wound, you thought this was from the canines. Those are the big upper teeth is what you're claiming, right?
Yes.
And you're saying today, anyways, starts here at the bottom and goes up. Is that
No.
your position today?
That's not what I said. I said the
Okay.
exact opposite.
So it starts here and comes down.
Correct.
Okay. And these, they're linear, just like these are linear, aren't they?
Yes.
But you have a problem with these because if these are the canines, you see the spacing there?
Uh-huh.
This is nowhere close, is it?
I didn't say that these were caused by canines. And spacing also, there's reasons why the spacing could be different.
Well, we can talk about that in a second. Are you suggesting that these exact, well, not exact, these two linear abrasions, just like 1 and 2, are you suggesting the canines caused these?
I don't know what caused those, which teeth caused those, or which nails caused those.
When you testified last year on June 18th, you said that this was either teeth or claws. Can you give us any development of your opinions, whether or not you think that is teeth or claws?
Excuse me? No, well, I couldn't hear because of the fan.
When you testified on June 18th, you said wound number 2, the top 2 linear abrasions, you believe were either teeth or claws. You shared with us now you have improved your study and have new opinions. Do you have a clear opinion whether this is teeth or claws?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained, ask it differently, Mr.
Do you have an opinion whether this is teeth or claws or not something totally different than a dog?
I believe they are teeth or claws caused.
When you testified at trial and in that hearing that they were teeth or claws, you changed that opinion as well at the most recent hearings, didn't you?
No, I'm going to object to the word that was used and it's been done before.
Mr. Brennan, word it differently.
Sorry?
Word it differently.
Okay. Did you testify at a more recent hearing that teeth made these, not teeth or claws, but teeth?
I may have, and I would like to see that.
May I
Could
approach?
you just hold 1 second? Could you please turn the fan off, Paul? Jerry, is it okay if we turn the fan off so we can hear better?
May I approach?
Yes.
From your December hearing, page 100, line 5, when you were asked about that second wound in December, and I asked whether you changed your opinion from teeth or claws to just teeth, weren't you asked specifically about that on page 100, line 5?
Yes. But may I read it?
Sure, I'll read it with you.
Okay. I said,
I'm not sure exactly what teeth made these. They could, one of them could, one set of these could be canine, one part of this, and then adjacent incisor tooth. But I'm not sure on the second set, so this is the set just above the elbow.
yeah, I think the first part of that paragraph is talking about the first set
Yes.
up there close to the shoulder, and then the sentence, but I'm not sure on the second set, so this is the set that's just above the elbow. I said I'm not sure.
And then, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Are you done?
Oh. Yeah, actually, I did make another comment. What is it? So, however, what is interesting and certain is that there's an upper set and a lower set. So, this mark was an upper tooth. This is a lower tooth. What I was referring to is this mark here and that mark, and then this mark here and this mark here. So it appears that this is from upper, and these are from lower. That's what I was referring to.
And so when you first described this wound as teeth or claws, at the most recent hearing, you had a certain opinion that this was teeth, didn't you?
Yes, I was leaning towards teeth. Correct.
Well, it didn't seem like you were leaning. You said these were from the upper teeth. You
Yes.
said it. You said it matter of factly, not with any qualification, your claim at the last hearing is this was from teeth.
That's what I believe.
And today, you're saying you don't know if these were teeth or claws.
Not with 100% certainty.
You didn't qualify 100% certainty. You were asked your opinion, Dr. Russell. You
Yes.
were asked, what do you think? And you didn't say, well, not 100% certainty. Your claim, the first time you testified, teeth or claws. Recently, you said teeth, and now you're saying you're not sure.
No, I'm saying I believe that those marks are from teeth, but I'm not 100% certain.
Suffice to say, looking at wound 2 alone, you cannot say this was caused by a dog.
In and of itself, no.
What tooth do you think caused this wound?
I don't know.
Do you think this in any way could be caused by dog teeth if you're claiming that this is dog teeth?
Excuse me?
Do you think there's any way these two could be caused by dog teeth if you're saying that these two are caused by dog teeth?
Yes, could be, but I don't know which teeth. And I don't know the extent of the bite, how much impact there was, how much pressure, how much contact there was between the teeth and the skin.
The canines are the longer teeth in a dog's mouth, aren't they?
They are.
And when a dog bites, it's very common for the canines to puncture, isn't it?
It's common if there's enough force, and it's common that you might have two canines if the strike is perpendicular to the skin. But if you have a tangential strike, a partial strike where only part of the teeth impact, you'll get different configurations.
Look at the spacing, Dr. Russell.
Did you say strike or strike?
Strike with a K.
Look at the spacing, Dr. Russell. A dog causing these wounds, the canines are not going to have such a dramatic distance between them because dog canines don't move, do they?
They don't, and I'm not claiming that these two parallel stripes in this case, or abrasions here, I'm not claiming that those two were caused by canines.
You think a dog is going to leave a wound with linear abrasions using its incisors as opposed to its canines? Is that your opinion?
It's possible if that's the only part of the mouth or the jaw that actually touched the skin, if it didn't go back as far as the canines.
Did you ever look at the underside of Mr. O'Keefe's arm?
I
The
did.
posterior side?
Excuse me. Pictures, yes.
Yeah. And when you looked at the photographs of the posterior side of Mr. O'Keefe's arm, did you find anything conspicuously absent from underneath his arm?
Well, first of all, let me clarify. Part of this is the posterior aspect of the arm. So are you asking me, did I look at the underside of the arm, the fleshy part
That's
of the
exactly
arm?
what I'm asking. It's a question I've asked before. When you look at the other side of Mr. O'Keefe's arm, did you notice anything conspicuously absent?
Yes, there's an absence of wounds.
When a dog bites, I don't care if it's a law enforcement dog or a domestic dog, you know it's like a lever, a dog's mouth, isn't it?
It can be if both jaws strike the skin. However, there are many times when only the upper jaw strikes the skin.
The lower jaw is a lever, locks, and that's part of the clamping and pulling process of a dog, whether it's a law enforcement dog or a domestic dog. You know that, don't you?
I know that they are attached.
Your claim is that there's many, many different dog bites on Mr. O'Keefe's arm. Are you suggesting, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that these are a number of different dog strikes and coincidentally every single one of them lacks any wound to the underside of his arm?
Yes.
Your claim is that a dog penetrated the sweater on the top, but the lower jaw did not leave any wounds?
I'm claiming that that's not what I'm claiming. No. As I mentioned earlier, these could be from lower jaw. Those right there.
You're saying could be.
Could be.
That's speculation. We're asking you for your medical opinions. Your medical opinions. Do you have any evidence that the dog's lower jaw, you said maybe upper, maybe, that the lower jaw, even just once in this whole event, penetrated Mr. O'Keefe's skin?
No, nothing penetrated the skin. There was no actual penetration of the skin. These are abrasions. But yes, I believe that these small marks right here, punctate marks, may be the result of lower jaw impact.
Rather than deal in speculation and maybes, can you tell us to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether or not this was caused by a tooth?
Objection, Your Honor.
We're going to strike the first part. Why don't you ask the other part?
Can you tell us to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether this superficial abrasion, put that back up please, was caused by a dog?
In and of itself, that part only, no.
Can you tell us anywhere on Mr. O'Keefe's arm to a reasonable degree of medical certainty where the lower jaw impacted Mr. O'Keefe to leave even a scratch?
Not with a reasonable degree of medical certainty on individual wounds.
And not just individual wounds, I'm talking specifically the lower jaw. Can you point to one wound, one abrasion on that arm where you can say to a reasonable degree of medical certainty the lower jaw caused any of those abrasions?
I believe there are several areas where there's impact from the lower jaw. However, I cannot say with reasonable degree of medical certainty that part only.
Let's look at number 3 to move along. When you first talked about these wounds, again, is it fair to say that you described that it could have either been teeth or claw?
I'd have to see it.
Okay, I'll bring it to you. You don't remember that testimony?
I remember, again, I've been here many times, so I want to be
Well, do you have the
specific.
opinion today, and I'm getting the transcript for you, Dr. Russell.
Thank you.
Do you have the opinion today that that those were either teeth or claws?
Yes.
What's your opinion today?
Well, I think that most likely they are from teeth marks.
Well, rather than most likely, we deal with reasonable degree of medical certainty. To a reasonable degree of medical certainty, can you give us an opinion regarding the cause of those marks?
Objection, Your Honor.
So I'll strike the comment.
Can you tell us to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether these wounds were caused by teeth or claws?
Individually, no.
Did you ever change your mind about the source of these abrasions?
Can you be more specific?
Did you ever claim that any of these abrasions were from upper or lower teeth?
I don't recall changing my mind.
You don't recall if you've ever said that? Let's separate these bottom wounds. Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether these were caused by teeth or claws?
I have an opinion.
To a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
No.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether these were caused by either a dog teeth or dog claws?
I have an opinion.
To a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
Individually, no.
The one near the wrist, you had testified yesterday there's lines in what you believe to be an arc, correct?
Yes, they have a general overall appearance of an arc.
If there's an arc and there's two linear abrasions on the outside borders, wouldn't these necessarily have to be the outside borders from canine teeth?
Not necessarily.
They're longer than the middle ones, aren't they?
The abrasions are, but doesn't mean the teeth are.
If this was an arc, like you claimed, you think different teeth other than the canines could have caused the outside scratches?
It's possible.
And you do note the distance between the top and bottom of those wounds compared to the distance in number 2 and the distance in number 1.
I see the difference, yes.
And you have to concede, Dr. Russell, that the same set of teeth, the same canines, could not reasonably have caused this wound, and this wound, given the distance between the inside and outside.
First of all, I'm not certain that these are all canines, as I mentioned earlier. Secondly, you have to take into account that skin is elastic. It bends. It depresses. So you could have two prongs, for instance, of a pitchfork, for instance, just as an example, impact the skin in different places, and the measurement between the two can be slightly different depending on the elasticity of the skin and the underlying structures.
This is not a slight difference, Dr. Russell, is it?
Again,
Objection, Your Honor.
So there was a question with that, so I'm going to let that in.
Again, Dr. Russell, the distance here, it's not insignificant, is it?
Mr. Brennan, I already mentioned that I did not think that these were caused by two canine teeth.
And the distance between these two, have you measured them?
I approximated them, yes.
What did you come up with?
Visually, and I can see that there's a difference.
What was your measurement for this one?
I think about 4 centimeters, and this was a little bit more.
Did you note that in the report? Did you
No, I did not.
measure them, did you actually take out a ruler, measure them, and document them as you studied these wounds? Did you go through that process during your methodology?
No, because this is an image, and there's no scale in this image as to how far away different points are. So my own measurement would not be accurate because there's no scale in the picture.
Why did you go through the process of measuring them if you're now saying that it's inaccurate after I asked you if you memorialized it? Why would you even do it if you're now saying it was inaccurate?
It was an approximate measurement in my mind.
In your mind?
Yeah.
Okay, but you never put it on a piece of paper, or report, notes?
That's correct.
Why would you even go through the process if you're looking at it and your explanation is, it's only a photo, I wouldn't be able to tell? Why would you even try to?
I think probably everybody in this room has already done the same thing.
And if anybody in this room did the same thing, it would be quite obvious, Doctor, that the gaps between 1, 2, and 5 are dramatically different from each other, aren't they?
They are. However, I'm not saying the same exact teeth caused those marks.
When you testified yesterday, you used the term differential diagnosis. I want to ask you a lot of questions about differential diagnosis. Do you remember using that term?
Yes.
And differential diagnosis was really just a way for you to try to get your opinion to the jury that these injuries were not consistent with a car accident. That's what a fancy way of doing it is, right?
No, it was a method I used.
Differential diagnosis, you're claiming that you can say this is not from a car accident or a car collision. That's what you're trying to say, aren't you?
That was the result of my differential diagnosis and my pattern recognition methodologies.
If you're going to exclude a cause of the injury, in this case, a collision, you have to know a little bit about collisions, don't you?
Yes. I don't know how to answer that.
Well, try.
Can you be more specific?
If you're going to say that these superficial abrasions could not have been caused by a car collision, you kind of have to understand a little bit about the mechanics of a car collision, don't you?
Actually, I disagree. However, I've treated thousands of victims of motor vehicle accidents, and have seen the wound patterns that they come into the emergency room with, and that forms a basis for me.
Do you really think?
I'm sorry, please.
Did you finish that answer, Dr.?
No.
Did I cut you off?
I believe so.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please continue.
No, and the thousands of victims of motor vehicle accidents, I've looked at their wounds, I've treated their wounds, cleaned their wounds, touched their wounds, and that is what I use as a basis, part of my basis, to determine that these were not caused or not consistent with a motor vehicle accident.
When you first gave that opinion that it wasn't consistent with the motor vehicle accident, it's fair to say you didn't have a lot of information at that time when you first came in and said that, correct?
Specific to this case?
Yes. Yes.
I didn't have a lot of information, that's correct.
Okay. And so in order to rule out a collision causing these wounds, let me ask you, are you an accident reconstruction expert?
Reconstruction? No.
Did you ever go to any academy for training to receive any type of degree or certificates in car collisions?
Actually, I did receive a certificate in hit-and-run accident investigation from the Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Council when I was a police officer.
Do you agree that what training you did have was rudimentary?
It probably was, yes.
Well, not probably. You've used that word before. Wouldn't you say that any training you have had has been rudimentary?
In terms of
Accident-
accident
Yes.
investigation, yes.
Have you ever testified as an expert anywhere in accident reconstruction?
No.
Do you know what ACTAR is?
ACTAR?
Yes.
No.
It's a certification group for collision specialists, accident reconstructionists. Is it fair to say that you're not ACTAR qualified?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Are you ACTAR qualified?
No, and I don't know any physicians that are.
Have you ever gone to a scene of a car collision and done an investigation and written a report and reached a conclusion about the cause of the car collision and the injuries that were related to that car collision?
No, that's outside my scope.
It's beyond your expertise.
Beyond the expertise of a physician, yes.
Right. Yet, yesterday, you offered the jury your opinion that these wounds were not consistent with a car collision. Did you offer that opinion yesterday?
Wounds are in my area of expertise. So yes, I am very comfortable talking about wounds from a variety of sources, including motor vehicle accidents.
I'm sorry, I didn't want the siren to interrupt you.
Okay. Yeah, wounds are definitely within my area of expertise.
When you considered your opinion to this jury that this was not caused by a car collision, do you know what type of vehicle is in question?
Yes.
Have you ever studied the vehicle to look at the make, model, the height of different things like the bumper, perhaps the taillight? Have you ever studied that in this case?
I'm aware of some of those factors,
Have you
yes.
studied that before you
Studied.
gave this opinion? Yes. Did you go and actually look at the photos, do any measurements before you came up with this opinion?
Not before I came up with the opinion, no.
Did you ever look at the damage to the rear taillight of the defendant's vehicle and see if it was in similar or the same height of Mr. O'Keefe if he was standing up? Did you ever do that?
I have looked at
And when
photographs.
you looked at the photos, did you see that a 6'1" man like Mr. O'Keefe, if he stood, his elbow would be the exact height of Miss Reed's broken taillight? Did you notice that?
I noticed that there was a similar, that the height would be similar. The height of the elbow and the taillight, yes.
Did you look at photographs of Miss Reed's broken taillight and see if where the break was corresponded closely or directly to the same height as Mr. O'Keefe's elbow and forearm?
I did.
And did you see that it matched up height-wise perfectly?
Close, yes.
We're going to break away right now from live coverage of the Karen Reed retrial right outside of Boston, Massachusetts.